here to listen, but I also would encourage you to ask questions and include them in your discussions as well. So our first one will include, we'll have a brief presentation from Statistics Canada, and then we will go from there. We'll do a little bit of question and answer, but then we want to get into those breakout sessions. We will, again, when we finish those breakout sessions, we'll come back. You'll get that warning on your screen telling you how much time you have left. And then you'll be kicked out of your rooms. Doors will be closed and you'll be shuffled back into our main group room again. At that point, we will take a 5-minute body break just to move around, and we will challenge you to the next edition of Mike's impossibly difficult census data quiz that he has lined up for, maybe it's not all census, but data quiz that he has lined up for today. And then our second discussion for today is going to be on how to run, and by request of Kate, how to start a consortium. And so I will give you a little bit of feedback based on the surveys that you all have filled out for me. And then we'll get into our breakout groups as well. And then at the end of the day, we'll come back briefly just to share some final thoughts, and then we will release you. So thank you everybody for being here today. And if there's nothing else and no problems, I'm going to switch. We're going to switch slide decks here. And I'm going to share, well, I better make sure I have it up here. Oh, can you see that? No, it's full screen on me, but not yours. What's happening? Can you see the census slides?
I don't see anything shared right now.
No? Okay, hang on. Sorry. Okay. Sorry, it's jumping full screen, so then I can't see it to share it. Anyways, it's okay. It's going to be okay. Okay, how's that now? Is that good, Jamie?
That's good.
Great. Okay, so Andrea, go ahead and
Great, thank you.
I will click through your slides for you.
Fantastic, thanks very much. Okay, so my name is Andrea Levitt. I'm the Assistant Director for Census Content and Analysis. And I'm joined by a few of my colleagues as well. I'll let them introduce themselves, but at the end of my presentation, we'll also do a demo of our dissemination planning website. Ma présentation est en anglais aujourd'hui, mais vous pouvez poser des questions dans la langue officielle de votre choix. So I will be presenting in English, but feel free to use either the official languages for questions. Next slide, please. Okay, so we'll start off with, I guess, COVID and the safety of the census this time around. You likely received your census card. They were all mailed out starting last Monday, May the 3rd. And in response to COVID-19, Stats Canada had to adapt its procedures in order to make this a safe census for both the respondents and Statistics Canada staff. So every reasonable attempt is being made to collect the information without coming into contact with respondents, and in-person visits will take place only when all other options are not available. So we have been reminding everyone through different media that completing the census questionnaire online is the best way to stay home and stay safe while fulfilling the census obligation. And respondents without reliable access to the internet are able to call into our census helpline in order to complete their questionnaire over the phone. And in fact, collection is going really, really well. We're receiving, I guess, more electronic returns than we had even hoped or planned for so far. So things are progressing really well. And next slide, please. So in terms of collection procedures, if a census questionnaire is not completed online, as I mentioned, or over the phone with Census Help Desk agents, Stats Canada will begin its follow-up or non-response follow-up collection. Census employees will have increased access to the phone numbers of respondents so that as much follow-up as possible can be done over the phone. In cases where a census employee is sent to a dwelling for non-response follow-up, a new no contact protocol will be followed. Under this protocol, no interviews will be conducted inside the respondent's dwellings. These interviewers will instead be physically distanced, so on the front step, wearing all protective equipment supplied by Statistics Canada, including masks, hand sanitizer, and things like that. And they've got a self-identifying vest to make sure that people know that they're from Statistics Canada. Next slide, please. So in past censuses, some remote Northern and First Nations communities were enumerated using a traditional canvasser approach, whereby Stats Canada census employees would administer questionnaires in the dwellings of respondents between February and July. So we had to cut that out, and the collection is taking place at the regular time as other areas of the country. The approach changed due to, I guess, the pandemic and to protect the safety of everybody. You can imagine if we were to go out, I guess, in February when it's super cold up north, and it wouldn't work so well to be doing this enumeration outdoors. Plus, I guess the incidents were much higher than they were, I guess, at the beginning, I guess, in the warmer months. So respondents for the first time are also able to complete their questionnaire online in the north. So that's new for 2021. And what else can I say for the slide? Yeah, so that's good. Next slide, please. Residents of most collective dwellings are not able to complete their own census questionnaire for the 2021 census in the context of the pandemic as well. So as it was done for 2016, enumeration using administrative records is the most efficient method for gathering this information. So no census employees is allowed to enter an institutional collective dwelling such as nursing homes. So we're working directly with the administrators there. For correctional facilities, we're also obtaining, I guess, administrative records through our, I guess, correctional services survey. It's administered from Stats Canada as well. So for some types of dwellings in which there is no administrator present or where there are no available administrative records, alternate arrangements are being made. For instance, in the case of lodging or rooming houses, census employees would complete a census questionnaire with the respondent at their door. Okay. So I'll now move to, I guess, the importance of the census, which I think all of you are aware. The census paints a portrait of people and the places where they live. The census data are used in many important planning decisions by both government and the private sector, among others. It is used to calculate transfer payments between different levels of government, determine representation in parliament, to help plan daycares, schools, hospitals, public transportation, and emergency services. Make business decisions to understand local level of the community and the people that they serve, help in planning vaccine distribution, and to serve as benchmarks as well. So next, I'll kind of give a quick overview of the content on the short and long form questionnaire. So the short form includes the same questions that we had in the past on demographics, sex of birth, date of birth, age, marital status, family status, and various language questions. In addition to this, we have 3 new questions. The first is on gender. So this allows respondents to indicate if they're male, female, or something other than this with a write-in box. There's a question on Canadian military experience, as well as instruction in the official minority language. On the next slide, we have an overview of the long form content. Again, it includes the existing short form content from the previous slide, as well as other information such as place of work, place of birth, ethnocultural diversity, questions on Indigenous mobility, education, labor market, and information about housing expenditures. And we've got 5 new questions. So the first is a question on membership in a Métis organization or settlement. There's one on Inuit land claims agreements, There's main reasons a person did not work whole year, or why they worked only part-time. And finally, there's a question on use of multiple modes of transportation to get to work. And the religion question has come back, the one that we ask every 10 years. So we're in 2021, ending in one, we're asking religion again. I guess you're probably wondering, this might come up in the Q&As later, but I guess COVID, as you know, might affect a lot of the way people are responding. More of us are working from home, so there's less commuting going on. So we'll be looking at all this carefully and try to understand it. And when we release, a lot of our storytelling will involve kind of what happened with in Canadian society with COVID. And because the information is typically released about 6 months to a year later, some things might change in society. So we will be trying to help, help with the context by bringing in other sources of information, such as administrative records that we might have to, illuminate the picture at that point in time. Okay, we'll move to the next slide, and this is where we turn to the actual dissemination strategy for 2021. You can move on to the next slide. So for 2021, we want to better meet our user needs. And like we're doing today, we're reaching out to different levels of government, NGOs, academia, business, general public, in order to find out kind of what the data and information needs are. So we're really happy to be here today to listen to what you have to say. On the next slide, we've got, 3 main strategies. One is to maximize our reach, strengthen partnerships and collaboration, and increase the value of statistical information. So I'll go through each of these in the next few slides. So first, we want to maximize the reach of our products and services by offering user-friendly products and flexible dissemination systems. So this includes options on how to access the data, whether HTML download or new technologies. Increasing the user knowledge base by providing instruction and training materials to help users make sense of the data. Providing easier access to our information and improving timeliness, particularly for our reference materials, and releasing microdata earlier as well. Also, we are enhancing our presence on social media. You may have seen, a lot of what we're putting out on TV and through social media, Facebook, Twitter, etc. We're really working hard on getting information out and encouraging participation across Canada. New for 2021 also is we will release results via American and Quebec Sign Language for our deaf community. So we're trying to really reach out and make everything more accessible. On the next slide, we look at strengthening partnerships and collaborate on products. So this is based on several principles, sharing and outreach to increase trust and minimize surprises through information sharing, communication by organizing webinars and roundtables around the time of major releases, collaborating by designing products with partners in advance. So if anyone has ideas, we are here to listen to your suggestions, and you can also touch base with us later to provide your feedback. We're really excited about this. And data integration with partners' websites and sharing links between different platforms. Our third strategy is to increase the value of statistical information. Sorry, that's on the next slide. We hope to achieve this by being relevant, grouping topics together, for example, and releasing products that address the key societal questions of the day. And through, bringing in different contextual pieces and really focusing on my dog's behind me sleeping and making funny noises. Okay, so integrating data from non-census sources to provide additional context, publishing schedules, reference materials, and product previews ahead of the major releases to help our users prepare for the upcoming releases. So at the end of this, my colleague Glenn will show you a demo of our planning website, and providing information in alternate formats and releasing new analysis and data beyond the day of release. So I think it's the next slide after this one. You'll see a general release schedule. The detailed one is public, and you'll see that shortly. But as you can see from this visual, essentially our release schedule is very similar to 2016, except that we pile in there a whole bunch of new content that was added to the questionnaire. So our releases will start at the end of this year with release of some reference materials in November, which will be the guide to the census of population and our census dictionary, as well as some geography reference materials to help users familiarize themselves with the census information and tools. Social media will continue on to promote the upcoming census releases and share information. Our reference materials will always have a lot of information about the COVID pandemic and possible impacts on the information and being used to understand, I guess, the information coming out. So on the various major days of release, so for example, in February, we'll have our population and dwelling releases, followed by age and sex and gender and types of dwellings. So we'll see this. You can see them listed out here. They'll end in November, but our releases won't stop there because we're going to continue to release beyond then, beyond November, with additional analysis and other information and tables to as we are able to publish more information. Just have a quick look here. So I think, is this the last slide that we have? Yeah, okay, so, and then here are some, this is a link to the actual dissemination planning webpage that Glenn will, I guess, walk us through. So I don't know if we want to stop for questions or go right into the demo and then do the questions then.
Let's do a quick round. There's a question about religion, but I think you confirmed that religion is on the 2021 census, correct?
Yeah, that's correct. Yes, it's on.
Yeah. So I don't see any other questions. Does anybody else have any questions before we go?
Yeah, I just, oh, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
Okay, this is Jasmine Ng from the city of Calgary. We participated in some conversations with Statistics Canada representatives to create a new downtown geography for large, like for CMAs. I'm just curious to know, do you know if the downtown geography is going to be used for any of the census releases, if that's kind of becoming one of the new standard geographies?
Yeah, our first release is going to be, I guess, using that pop and dwelling, and we'll try to loop that in through all of our different releases. Glenn, you might know more, or
yeah, hi. My name is Glenn Holman. I'm the Assistant Director in Census Operations Division, and I'm responsible for the dissemination sub-project in Census. So it will be an analytical geography, as Andrea mentioned. It will be available for pop and dwell and some analytical reports. It is not a standard geography yet, though. So it is not part of the statistical hierarchy at StatCan, but it is there, and we will be able to produce custom tables for it if required, if that's something that you're looking for.
Okay, thanks. Just a plug to say that I think that geography will be very useful for us. So thanks very much for creating it.
Okay.
Can we have a question from Albert? Albert, do you want to ask your question?
Yes, I want to ask a question. I have a couple of friends that have lost their census card in their mailbox. What is the next steps to do?
I would say they should contact our census help desk in order to obtain a new one. So, Glenn, I don't have it super handy in front of me. There's one, I've got my card, so they can contact us. I guess at www.census.gc.ca, or the phone number I've got for you. It's 1-855-340-2021.
Can you put it in the chat box, the number?
Yeah, if I can figure it out, I'm just on a little tablet. Or maybe Duday or Glenn or Paul can put that number in there. Yeah, but
yeah, they should be receiving, if they haven't responded, they should be receiving a reminder card shortly as well. So that should be might even be in the mail by now.
So they'll
Right.
automatically get a
Thank you so much.
second card sent with their code again?
If they have not responded to the census, yes.
But I saw someone just put the numbers that you mentioned, Andrea.
Yeah, Mike and Jasmine put them in for you.
Thanks.
Albert, do you have any other questions about the census?
No, I'm good. I'm good.
Okay. I can't see all of the hands, but I can see Michelle has a
Jasmine,
question
you go ahead.
for Jasmine. And then Mike. Michelle, do you want to ask your question?
Yeah, no, sure. I was just the couple of long form new additions. Wondering about the response options for the one that was about the reasons for not working, working part time or not working a whole year, and similarly the options or how you're going to deal with multiple modes. Is it going to be one's primary? Just wondering how the responses will work for that.
Yeah. So just getting out my questionnaire so I can to the right page. So I guess there's two questions on mobility commuting to work. So it's what's your usual method as well as the multiple ones. How are they going to be analyzing that? Is that what you're asking, or?
Well, clearly I didn't get the didn't have the fortune of getting the long form in them. So I only was a short form responder. No, just how are the options laid out? So just wondering how the response, how you'll be able to identify, is it multiple modes, or is it like you say a primary and then maybe one other?
Oh, it's a mark all that apply.
And all that apply, okay. But
Yeah.
is one of the all that apply the primary?
They are also asked what the main mode of commuting.
Okay, so there's a main and then mark all that apply for other.
It's actually first they're asked what are the modes of commuting that you usually use to get to work. So that's that's mark all that apply. And then there's a supplementary question that asks what was the main mode of commuting.
Okay, that'll be make for a fun cross.
Okay. And then there are various responses to the questions on why they didn't work whole years, such as illness or disability, pregnancy, student at school, cared for own children, unable to find work, et cetera, et cetera. And then there's like write-in boxes and something similar for the other question on what was the main when the person worked mostly part-time, personal preference, student, business conditions, cared for children or relatives, illness or incapacity, et cetera. And again, write-in box.
Good, that's great, thank you.
Jasmine?
Yeah, I just have a couple more questions. Sorry to monopolize the time. I'm just wanting to confirm, is Beyond 2020 going to be used for the download option for the 2021 census results?
Yes, it will be. So for census, as you know, our tables are so big, we have that option for census tables. So you'll see with 2021, we are putting most of our data products and data tables into the new dissemination model, which is the standard output mode for StatCan for what used to be CanSim tables and stuff. And those NDM up till now has not offered Beyond 2020, but for census, we will continue to offer the Beyond 2020 option.
Great, thanks. I think that will be of great use to lots of us here. And then my last question is just about visible minority, that dimension in many tables. I noticed on your website for 2016, it's not reported in that many tables, and it was just sort of a question and maybe a request that we can think about adding visible minority to tables as it makes sense, just because I think there's a lot of interest in understanding the differential outcomes based on visible minority identity for people in Canada right now.
Yeah, so I guess we're beginning to disaggregate data now, and there will be a real effort to include many more tables with information about different, I guess, groups, whether it's gender or visible minority groups or others.
Great, thank you.
Mike, you can go ahead and ask your question. And then after Mike, Graham, do you have a microphone that you can ask with? You can let me know in the chat. If not, I'll ask your question for you.
I guess you partly answered this question. There's been seemingly a trend to provide more data at smaller levels of geography for free on the StatsCan site. So seeing more at like census subdivision in 2016 compared to 2011. Is that trend going to continue? I mean, this idea of disaggregating data, both to get an idea of different demographic groups and at lower levels of geography. Both those levels of disaggregation are, both those types of disaggregation are of interest to our members. So just wonder if you can speak to what we could expect.
Yeah, so it is our intention to release more tables down to the census subdivision level. So that is part of our overall strategy. There are some challenges as we disaggregate more. There is more suppression and confidentiality that kicks in, right? So that's one of the things that we have to balance. The other thing is, and we are trying to figure out how to make this work. With Beyond 2020, there is an upper limit on the number of cells. And as you disaggregate more and include lower levels of geographies, we have found that we are exceeding that Beyond 2020 threshold in some instances. So we're trying to figure out how we can design tables that still have the disaggregation while still, providing as much information as possible.
Yeah, that ends up being the case for a lot of stuff that we order, is that we just end up having it split into several parts, usually by geography.
Yeah, and that's one of the things we're looking at. There may be some instances where CSDs, it won't be the full universe of CSDs, but CSDs above a certain population threshold, right? Because confidentiality kicks in so much and you end up with tables that are primarily zeros, right? And which is not something we want to do.
Yeah, though, I mean, you can have a bunch of crosstabs. I mean, people, whether you can go deep into the crosstabs, it'll work for some cities and not others. And we find our strategy is often just, we order a bunch of tables, there will be a lot of suppression, but you do end up getting a lot of stuff anyway for a lot of different communities.
Yeah, the other challenge, and you'll see it when we do the demo on the planning site, one of the things that we will be including with our data tables is data quality indicators, so confidence intervals. And what that has done, it's both, we feel it's important to give people a better understanding of the quality of the data they're seeing and the variance that exists in it. Unfortunately, it does add to the cell count, right? So this is where we're sort of trying to balance these two competing things of providing more information to judge fitness of use without exploding these tables, because it in essence triples the size of all the tables, having a lower bound and an upper bound. So some of the technical things we're struggling with. It might mean that we do have to split some tables up, but we're doing our best to not reduce the disaggregation or the level of detail, if you will.
Okay, I had another question just about some content. I think a lot of people are going to be interested in the place of work status dimension this year, where someone working at home, no fixed workplace address, or I had heard from our context that there may be some changes to this dimension just to try to measure impacts of pandemic, everyone working at home. Is there going to be any changes to that dimension, or anyone know?
So I don't know what happened with my camera. I don't think you can see me, but so the questions remain the same. If they are working from home because of COVID, like many of us are, people will be able to indicate that that's where they were working, and we'll know, I guess, given that it's May right now, there are a lot of stay-at-home orders that we will expect to see more prevalence of this happening across the country. And that's why we're going to try and bring in some additional information when we do release the information on place of work and other similar content. I guess next fall, we'll bring in other pieces, whether it's from the labor force survey or do a special kind of omnibus survey to see around that time how things might have changed if they're very different a year later after the pandemic.
Okay, so there could be quite a lot of people with working who would have worked from home, and we wouldn't, the reason won't be indicated in the census, but we try to measure the impact, the change later.
That's right. Yeah, we're not asking them why they're working from home.
Okay, thanks a lot.
One thing on place of work is that we used to provide, well, it used to be purchased through the Place of Work Consortium, which was a consortium of various municipalities, provinces that paid for 26 customized place of work tables, in some cases flow tables. We have found some operational efficiencies, and as a result, those tables will be made free to the public through the standard product process.
Okay, I've got a couple more questions. One is from Graham Good in Muskoka. He asked, how do people renting apartments in residential homes fill out the census? They could be students with part-time rental agreements or working people on long-term rental agreements. So this is for people renting apartments in residential homes.
Okay,
I
so
think private residence.
I guess they're asked to fill out their questionnaire at their main residence. So if it's students that are temporarily away renting and their usual place of residence is at their parents' home, they would be enumerated at their parents' home. But if that's their only residence, then they would, I guess, indicate that on their census questionnaire that would be delivered to their house. If it's just a room within, I guess, a dwelling, they live with a family, like as a boarder, they would, and that's considered, sorry, their main residence, they would be enumerated there for confidentiality reasons. If they don't want to share their information, they are able to obtain, I guess, a questionnaire for a single person. Does that
Right, so
answer?
they were renting an apartment in a home, possibly the home, like maybe the homeowner would be then including them in the whole household.
Yeah, and they, I guess, we hope that the coverage questions are quite simple. I guess there's different questions that help people decide whether they should include that person or not.
Okay, and we've got one more question and then we're going to go on to our screen share. So I'm going to maybe Anna, do you want to go ahead and ask your question? And while you do that, I'm going to stop sharing my screen and I'll get Paul to open up his screen. So Anna, go ahead.
Sure, thank you. My question was about aggregated dissemination areas. They were introduced in 2011, and my question if they are remaining a standard geography in 2021.
Yes, they will be. They are still considered a standard geography. And we will be producing products for them again.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, so it's Paul here. Hi, everybody. I think Glenn is going to be sharing his screen.
Oh, sorry.
Given how techno wizard I am on Zoom, I think Glenn was the better one to do this.
That's right. We discovered that a couple of days ago.
I'll give it a try. Can everyone see that now?
Yes.
Okay, so this is the Census Dissemination web module, not to be confused with the Census Collection portal. So if you type in www.census.gc.ca, that takes you to the questionnaire to start it. This module resides within the sort of StatCan dissemination world. So this is, I'm sure everyone here has been to this site many times, at least I hope so. As of yesterday, we released a new module, for lack of a better term, called the 2021 Census Dissemination Planning pages. And within this module, you'll see a lot of the information that Andrea just went through in the presentation. This is our first time putting something like this out in advance. Traditionally, we've only put out the calendar, but we thought given a number of changes occurring that we would put something like this together. And there's a number of subsections under overview. You can see basically what Andrea went through, plus a statement on COVID-19. We also have the detailed release plans. And so here are the actual dates for the 2021 census. Again, this is now in the public. So, you know, please have a look. As Andrea said, it's very close to what we had in 2016. There are two new sort of features here. You can print a downloadable bookmark that you can print off yourself, or we have a calendar that you can download and save to whatever electronic calendar application you have. So you can add this to your smartphone and get a reminder on when the releases are coming so you don't forget them, because I know how excited everybody is about Census. Okay, let's see, what else do we have here? There's a overview of the various products and services. Now, this is what we know to date. It might change moving forward. So we might make some small alterations, but generally speaking, this is what we know as of today. And within each of these subheadings, sub-product profiles, there are some tables that give you information about the levels of geography you'll get, for the census profile, the data tables, highlight tables, and the other data products and the formats you can get them in, and whether or not there's web services or not. So very useful information at the product level. We also have bear with me, a what's new section where we talk about things that are new for 2021. In here, there's a larger description of the data quality indicators that will be available through the census. So I'm not going to go through all this now. Please refer to this. As time goes on, we will likely update this what's new section with more and more information as we're ready to disseminate it or talk about it. And then if you want to send us your ideas or thoughts or anything that you're looking for, please, there's a function here that you can provide us information through a consultation email address that comes directly to my sub-project, and we share it with subject matter and try and see how we can address those needs. And finally, there's a link to the Census of Agriculture, and this is their newly updated page for 2021. It takes you to, I think this has been just released like 2 days ago. So this is all brand new to Census of Agriculture. So I will, that's all I have. So if there's any questions, I'd be happy to answer or walk you through this.
So we do have one more question from Jasmine. So Jasmine, you can go ahead and ask your question, and then anybody else, you can either put your hand up by clicking on the button on the bottom of your screen, or just type your chat in the chat and we'll call on you.
Yeah, so I was just wondering about the new gender question. Do you know, I guess I'm just wondering about that one, because we may expect relatively low numbers, like maybe 5% or less of the population that would identify as a gender other than male or female. Are you planning to include, I'm just curious about your plans, I guess, around when that gender dimension might be included in tables, or if it's going to be quite limited. I know there was an analysis done a few years ago about same gender relationships as an example, and that one I think was just available at the national level. So I'm just curious about this gender identity one.
Okay, so we're just actually looking at that to see what information we can release. So I guess previously we would release same-sex couples, so now it'll be same gender couples in terms of relationships. For gender, whether we do binary kind of male-female release in all of our tables, or whether we can add the third category. We still need to figure that out, because as you know, we're going down to super low levels of geography. We're already kind of running out of cases. So we are, I guess, also cognizant of I guess, confidentiality and safety and things like that. So
Great.
I don't know if that helps you, but we are looking at that to see where it makes sense to include the three categories.
Great. Well, I think I'm just curious to know that. That's good to know that you're thinking about it, and if it's possible, you will release it at smaller levels.
That's a great example of something we might add to the what's new portion here once we're ready to put that out, once we know our exact plans.
Great. And then just one last question about, so in 2016, there was a new linking to immigration status. So we got much more detailed information about whether people were refugees or economic immigrants and that sort of thing. And I believe that was through linking to immigration files. Is that linking planned again for this time around with the census? I just checked the questionnaire and there's not a question about the status
Yeah.
per se in the questionnaire.
Yeah, we actually went a little bit further and dropped some of our questions from our census questionnaire, and we'll be using our administrative records from IRCC Immigration and Refugee Canada to collect year of immigration and immigration status, as well as the applicant type, whether it was a business or family or refugee.
Great, thank you.
All right, I don't see any more questions coming in. And if you do have any questions, remember you can ask them of whoever is in your group, and we can get back to StatsCan at any point as well. So I'm going to bring us, sorry, give me a second as I switch over. All right, so thank you very much to Andrea and to Glenn. We are really pleased to have you. It's nice to have our annual meeting on, you know, the week of Census Day and have this be going out right now. We are going to break out into our groups. I think, Jamie, we're gonna have 5 groups again.
Yep, I set up 5 groups.
Okay, great. So there will be 5 groups. Each group is going to have somebody from Community Data Program in it to help facilitate. Our main job is to listen and press our record button so that we capture the conversation, so that we can make sure we follow through with any ideas that come up. Just a few notes for anybody who wasn't with us yesterday. You will have the ability to share your screens in your breakout groups. So if you would like to do a little bit of show and tell and share what's going on in your own community, please feel free to do that. The CDP people yesterday were chatting afterwards, and a couple of breakout groups really made use of that function, and they said it made for very great discussion. So please feel free to do that. If you do need help, please reach out to the CDP facilitator and they will do what they can. And I believe we have until 2:30 for these discussions, but you'll get time warnings before you get kicked back into the session. Hang on, are there any last questions here? And Andrea. Okay, great. So without further ado, we will send you off into your breakout groups and we will see you all back together at 2:30.
can see them here for the 2020-21 year. Northern Policy Institute, even though they haven't been around that long in the program, are in the top 15 since 2010 and last year. Social Planning Toronto, though, comes up pretty big in both lists, and so do we, where CEDNET and Canadian Council on Social Development. That's both us. But yeah, I see nonprofits, you're working a lot on the weekend. So well, cheers to you. There you go.
All right. Hopefully everybody is back. You got a little bit of moving around. You're excited about data. Really hope you had some good census discussions. I know we did in our group, but we did have to keep ourselves on topic. And at the end, we actually jumped towards this discussion, which I'm quite happy to hear about. And this is always a really important discussion for us to have when you are together. The model for our 2 afternoons has been to give you plenty of time to talk about your work. Hopefully you got a chance to talk about stuff that maybe isn't even in the realm of CDP, but is just work that you share by being colleagues from across the country. But right now we want to dive really deep into the role you play for the community data program. So I'm going to present these results from the surveys that many of you kindly filled out for us. I actually got a really good response rate back from this. So the survey I sent out to all of you on how to run a consortia is partly so we can amalgamate numbers and have a good understanding of what's going on as a whole. But also we find that as a reference point, it's really good for us to hold on to this in case there's turnover in your organizations. It gives some sort of precedent. It gives some sort of background for anybody who's coming after you to lead the consortium. So it is sort of history of how you're run that we can hold on to. So my plan is I'm going to very quickly go through some slides that have brought together the results of that survey. They really only highlight major points, and hopefully there'll be some discussion ideas in there. And then we're going to again break out into groups. And this is a time for you to really just ask each other questions and really support each other in running your consortium. And again, the CDP people will be there, so we'll be able to listen and support you as best we can as well. Okay, so first question was looking at whether you meet regularly or not. And from the responses, we know that there are often meetings held to share resources and for training. Some of you come together to participate in webinars. There's a lot of networking that happens at these meetings. The frequency varies. I know some of you actually have the consortium as part of another group that meets together, whether it's a research group or a networking group. And so those groups, I think, meet more regularly and others less frequency, but some of you have at least regular meetings. And then clearly COVID has impacted that. So I have heard from a couple of you in your survey indicated that, meetings have just been canceled. There's been nothing happening, and that makes sense. A lot of you weren't even doing your jobs for part of this year. And then some organizations obviously don't meet at all. There's no plan to meet. But there might be some hope in meeting earlier. So in your conversations, you might ask each other about what you do with those meetings, particularly if you don't have any meetings, and what that might look for in the future. We were wondering about how much work you're doing to get new members in. This is not a priority for almost anybody. Most of you would gladly welcome somebody who knocked on your door and wanted to be part of your consortium. But a lot of you just don't have the capacity to be out there asking people to join you and inviting people in. And clearly, again, COVID really impacted what even if you had intended to do some of this year, it wasn't possible with COVID. So my conversation for you here would be, is there a way to expand your consortium? Would that be helpful? Or are you happy doing what you're doing now with the groups that are involved with your consortium now? Sorry, I got a thing saying I can't record anymore because I'm full. I don't know if somebody else is able to do that. Okay.
I'm still recording.
You're still okay. So looking at actively recruiting members, again, it's not something that actively happens, but when it does happen, it's through word of mouth. It's through conversations and invitations in for anybody you meet. Manage an operation. We know this to be true. It's historically true that it really varies from consortium to consortium. So some of your consortia are managed by a single organization. Often this is a local government department and they take the role as lead. You sometimes have one individual within the organization responsible for administrating the consortium. And then you also have sort of informal management arrangements between different entities. So it's really a mixed bag. I encourage you to ask each other about this and try to find other consortiums that are operating more similarly to you. That's often helpful to have somebody else that you can talk to about this. Consortium finance is also a really big mixed bag. I have had conversations with people in the last year where I know that your financing is trickier now because of different changes to organizations and budgets and things. So feel free to ask each other about how it works, how you get things paid for. You might get some different ideas on how to go looking for money. This is also partly what we try to do at CDP and offer you a business case if you need to present something to a funding purpose. But don't be shy to ask each other about the costs and how that gets done. So how are the fees split? Again, quite a mixed bag. So this is within the consortium. So you'll see at the bottom, some consortia, you have the lead organization will just pay for the whole thing. This is often the case if you have like a municipal government will pay for it, and then the nonprofits, local nonprofits are then invited to be part of it without paying. For some organizations, you'll see at the other corner, costs are shared equally. So they just divvy them up amongst however many organizations are part of it. Sometimes the members will pay a small fee, but you have sort of one host or the lead organization will actually pay the majority. And so it's just sort of a smaller buy-in fee. And then on my top left, some are based on organizational side and capacity to pay. So again, this is often a balance between governments and nonprofit groups or what's available for funding and grants. Again, ask each other about this because you might find somebody's got a model that could work for you. I'm not going to spend much time on this because it doesn't really change. I guess for those of you who are new, maybe just take a glance at this list and it will show you sort of the possibilities for who could be involved in your organization. This is also readily available on the CDP website and all over the place. So lots of different potential people are interested in being part of your consortium. So different challenges within running a consortia. I suspect this will be a huge part of your conversations today. Recruiting and engaging members is often a challenge. Balancing their needs and skills. Helping members who don't have the data skills and how much help and how you can manage that is often a challenge for people. Institutional capacity to pay membership. And then we did get a couple of comments saying that the actual administration of the consortium is actually fairly simple and straightforward, which is good. because that's partly our jobs. And so we want to hear that at least we're being good to you. Type of work produced by your consortia. So this is also really a big, huge mix bag of stuff. I would encourage you to talk to each other about what you intend to produce or what you have produced, things that you're working on. I think an interesting conversation around this work is if you're producing it as one organization, or if you're part of, if your data consortium is ever working on a project together. I think that would be really interesting to share with each other as well. Again, all sorts of different stuff that you're working on. Here's another group of them. These are the reports and things that were shared with us. So ward profiles, looking at seniors in York, housing and homelessness plans. We're going to hear more about those in our solutions lab, I think. Community safety and well-being. That was more than one organization is working on publications on community safety and well-being. And then neighborhood profiles, we have the one from City Regina here, but that's a big one. And I know from my last conversation that StatsCan data is definitely going to be used in updating your neighborhood profiles. A lot of you are responsible for those coming up. So stories you want to share, this would be great. Share with each other the positive things too. Consortia is a great place for like-minded people to come together and discuss data. Good data leads to good public policy, which leads to good programs and stronger and healthier communities. And building the capacity of the entire team to utilize CDP through workshops and training sessions, right? So we like to think of the consortia as a local capacity building organization. You are your local community group. Can be a really excellent place to use data and build something together with your partners. So I know some of you are just getting it off the ground and maybe aren't at that point yet, but some of our other consortia actually work really well. I mean, it seems like COVID has stopped a lot of your work, but some of you have really great community groups that come through with the CDP. So please share, any of you who do have that working, please share the success stories with your colleagues. All right, and there is a comment from Kate. So for anybody who is looking at safety and well-being, please get directly in touch with Kate. And you know, we can send messages like this out if you're ever working on a project and you're looking to connect with other people. We do our best not to communicate with you overly, but if you want to ask a question to your fellow leads, that's definitely something that we can help facilitate as well. But this is absolutely the time to do this. So that's all I wanted to share with you. I do have the results of all the surveys now. So I will have them in a very simple Excel document. It will be on the website as a resource for you. So if ever you want to go and get some other ideas, you will have it. And if ever you have a successor coming on or a partner coming on, it's a resource we can share with them as well. So going into breakout groups, this is really a time for you guys to have the conversations you need to have and help each other. The main question is, what can the CDP do to help run your consortia? How can you help each other, give each other ideas? Is there something we can do from CDP standpoint to help, you know, provide different resources, or if there's anything we can do to sort of help make things easier for you? And then the bigger question of how do you do it? How do you run your consortium? So I don't have anything else for you. Unless there's any big questions for me now, I think we should get into our breakout groups because you're better to ask each other any questions that you have right now. And then we can always come back and ask a few questions to each other at the end of our discussions as well. Does that sound good? There's no noise, so I think we're okay. It's 3 o'clock now. I think we have until 3:45. I can't see the agenda because I can't see more than my screen. But I believe we're coming back together at 3:45, and we will do a wrap up of our 2 afternoons together before we close at 4 o'clock today. Good. It's quiet out there in Zoom land. Okay, great. Jamie, please send us off into our rooms, please.
Did you get disconnected? I'll just put you back in the room that you're supposed to be in.
Pull together.